had a nervous breakdown, and I called Susie Essman, my wife from Curb, and I said, you have until about noon, and I don't know what you can do. I resent people who don't reach out. I'm reaching out, but I will be dead at noon if you don't help me in some way.
So were you a yeller before?
Certainly, I was a reactor.
So up until age 59?
Oh, actually, even after I was initially diagnosed. But I had a breakdown, a nervous breakdown, and I was suicidal.
Okay.
I wanted to commit suicide.
Can you tell me about that?
Yeah. I was defined by what others thought of me. I was defined by my status in show business, and I was on the show The Goldbergs, and there were some things said about me. I could have dealt with it if it was just me being a jerk or me being happy in the split, but I was made out to be sort of a Lothario, which I know is not me, but some people dislike me that much. And what I can cop to is I was an asshole, and I was manic. And the mania could be in both. But I was not somebody you wanted to work with, especially on a show that Curb's my style. And I was joyful for the most of it. I'd have my moments of, I'm not really in a good place. But when you do a show like The Goldbergs, which people love, it was the #1 show on TV that families watched together for a period of time. And so I was really happy, but I was not happy because, I had to film them at the same time, which was exhausting because there's a thing called first and second position. So I was first position on The Goldbergs, meaning they owned me. I couldn't do it. They don't do that much anymore with the short things. But what I got, which was amazing, was the studio said, you can still do Curb. Generally, that doesn't happen.
Okay.
But they were filming at the same time, so I drive from one set to the... It was exhausting. If I was in my 30s, delightful. In my late 50s, early 60s, not. It's difficult. And but I'm a hardworking guy, and I did it, but I had resentment towards the Goldbergs because my experience on... And so many delightful people on the Goldbergs. Really, just wonderful people who I'm still very close with today. Curb is what I do.
Right.
Curb Your Enthusiasm and the stand-up you saw, they're tied together. It's what I do. I like improvising. I like being in the moment. I still write material, and I have to do what's in the outline that Larry wrote. I have to be present with what's been written, but that's creative for me. I'm working with Larry David, and then I go to the Goldbergs, and I already have so much resentment about many things at first undiagnosed bipolar and diabetic, and my blood sugar was not under control. And with all this, I got no sleep, and it was a recipe for disaster. So when that part of it fell apart, it wasn't as much me. Well, the bipolar thing and being out of control, that was bad, and I could have dealt with it. But when disparaging things were said about me that I knew weren't true, but it was about what people think of me. What are people going to think when they hear this? Now, it was an attempted assassination of my character. It didn't last because I've had good character in my life with women, so it all worked out, but I didn't know that at the time. And I had a nervous breakdown, and I called Susie Essman, my wife from Curb, and I said, you have until about noon, and I don't know what you can do. I resent people who don't reach out. I'm reaching out, but I will be dead at noon if you don't help me in some way. And she called my girlfriend, she called my ex-wife, and she called Laura Stryker, who's one of the producers of Curb Your Enthusiasm I'm very close with. And all these ladies saved me. They saved my fucking life, which is unbelievable. And the idea that my assistant comes over, who also saved my life. You met her. She's been with me a long time. And she's so sweet and kind. And I said to her, because I got home, because I made this call, and on the way home from making the call in the car, I saw walls I wanted to drive into, like I saw. But I said, no, I reached out. I know what's going to happen at noon, and there was no doubt. And next thing I know, together, my ex-wife and my girlfriend, they like each other, come in. And my friend Brad Morris, I had to sit in this room, and he had to keep his eye on me while they looked for a place for me to go to. A rehab center, a suicide place, like all these different things. And so I went. I still was anxious when I came back. I thought people were staring at me. I thought that I was going to be demonized. And there was a small part of that happened, but that's those people's problem, because it's not who I really am, and they would ask questions or they would look at me, but few and far between. And as the years go on, like even someone says, when you were on the Goldbergs and all that happened, I was rooting for you. Very kind. But that's a reminder of people are remembering that. And even, I've been in show business for 42 years. I've been a comedian. And you think about, on my Wikipedia page, it mentions that I had trouble on the Goldbergs. And we're talking about a blip on the course of my life. But that's how it works. And it's sad and frustrating. So it took a long time. So then a friend of mine brought me into AA. I was doing therapy at that time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 to 7 times a week. And I was, medicated, and I worked my way back through AA. And so I feel something, until this all happened, I never felt contentment. Like I'm stoic to whatever degree. I'm content. I deal with what is. I know how I want things to be, but what's actually happening. And I don't lose my temper. I'll get frustrated sometimes. I'm going to be filming a special in the not too distant future, and I may share a lot of that. I know I want to share it, especially the suicide part. So people who are bipolar or suicidal, whatever, they can look at me and go, him too? And then, of course, you give the number at the end for the suicide hotline now has gotten down to 3 numbers, which is beautiful. Not much to remember, but I want to ease the pain, but also if I save one person's life by having that number at the end, come on.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you something that one of my most popular videos is an interview that I did with Cesar Millan, the dog whisperer.
Yeah.
And he told me about when he attempted suicide.
Oh, he attempted. I knew it wasn't going to be attempt. I was going to be dead. And that doesn't discount. An attempt means you really want to do this, or maybe not. I don't know. But I was going to be dead. And if I wasn't dead at noon, I'd be dead at 1. I'd be dead momentarily after that. But I didn't want my kids to, when you kill yourself, we'll get back to Caesar in 1 second. I'm remembering
something.
But when you kill yourself, great, your pain, it's over, you're gone, you're wherever, you might be reincarnated, whatever the hell it is, but you're destroying the lives of everyone around you. That will never go away. Never go away. So that's really selfish to do, I feel. But you're in so much pain, it's hard to make. But go ahead, Caesar.
But those are 2 good points, because you have to be in so much pain, because everybody who has taken their own life, it's not that they didn't have people they cared about. They were in so much pain that it took over.
I still feel the selfish thing, because if you reach for help and you don't get it, then I understand it. But I felt like I don't want to be selfish. I'm going to reach for help, but this is a done deal. But I'm throwing it out there because I didn't want to ruin my children, especially. Now I think about it, it's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it would have had such an impact.
No, I know, and I've learned more and more about that in my thing. So please get back to Caesar.
Okay, so anyway, the reason I told you this is because the comments that come in are exactly what you're saying. Him revealing this to me publicly on YouTube has helped so many people. I mean, there are comments every day flowing in about how this has helped them.
He's profoundly affected so many people's lives.
Yes. Can you tell me what you were thinking of? Did you have a plan? during those hours?
I live in the Hollywood Hills. I was going to jump off my backyard over my hill. Knowing me, I would have broke every fucking bone and survived. That is classic me. So it wouldn't have worked. And then if you're laying there and your bones are broken, how do you attempt it another time? A, you can't climb up the hill. You know, are you going to go down thing? Do you have a gun? Like, there's no... It's the one try, and that's what I was going to do. Just jump off my backyard down. It's very steep, and the ground is hard. That was my plan. But I will say this, being bipolar, a lot of times on the set, I didn't have a good time because I was so dark. I was, when the camera was on, I was able to leave that behind. But when it was kind of like the comedian crying off stage, the tears of the clown. I don't recall.
Did everybody know? Like, could anybody tell? What would you do?
If I wasn't, so I acted two things. One is I acted in terms of my silliness the same on Curb as I did on the Goldbergs. The Goldbergs, most of my silliness and political incorrectness, or I had a
like
lack
what?
of. Oh, I'd sing a song about my grandma's balls. I get sent to HR. The HR person would say to me, "You can't sing a song about your grandma's balls." He'd say, "Grandmas don't have balls, and it could be activating for someone," which of course is ridiculous. But that's the world I lived in there. And then on Curb, if I was quiet, people would come up and ask me what's wrong with me. On the Goldbergs, probably if I was quiet, someone would ask me what's something wrong with me, or someone would think, "Oh, thank God he's quiet." Because I know there's people on that set that really liked me and really thought I was funny.
So who liked you on that set?
I'm talking about crew members.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to get into the actors.
Yeah.
Some of the actors really, actually all of them dug me, to my knowledge.
So it was
But
really
the
an
crew,
HR situation that was...
The HR person didn't quite groove to it or get it. And I accepted that. I remember my last day very clearly because I'd been told by the HR person, blah, 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 and I called up, I had my manager and my the producer of the show, the executive producer of the show, and they were in the last session with the HR person. And he was asking me to do this, and I go, "Oh, fuck, can I do this?" And I didn't do any of the raising the voice, but my manager and the executive producer, they were trying to protect me. So I called them both that night, and I said, "You know what? I'm just going to do it. I probably won't be as funny on the show because I'll have to be really controlling myself, which, by the way, I don't even have to control myself. It's not even being controlled. I'm just who I am now. And if I say something silly, it's going to be appropriate in the moment. Not that I wouldn't sing a song about my grandma's balls again, because that's ridiculous. But the last day I was working, I'd already felt, I didn't know who kept calling my name into HR. I didn't know who was saying, because someone was reporting me, or some people. And so I was paranoid. Combine that with it gotten so bad that I was just overwhelmed. And we're filming a scene. And in the scene, my son's character comes in with Little Caesar's Pizza. And he goes, "Hey, everybody, I got Little Caesar's pizza." And we're all supposed to say, "I love Little Caesar's Pizza." And I said, hold on, this is the rehearsal. Hold on. And I go over to the producer and the director, different producer who protected me. And I just said to them, "This is a commercial, right?" And they said, "Yeah, we're making some extra money so we can afford to pay an extra writer." And I thought, Sony's a billion, hundreds of billion dollar company. They won't pay for one writer, and I got to do a Little Caesars commercial to have that happen. They said, "Yeah, they're watching in the next room." That's what would happen when the client would be in the next room watching.
Oh, the client meaning an advertiser?
Yeah, well, the advertising agency and Little Caesars.
Oh.
And so I've done commercials, I said to them, for a lot more money, and I don't want to have my work tying up with a commercial is reprehensible to me. It is. I understand I have a variety show sponsored like Milton Berle or Jackie Gleason. It's sponsored by State Farm Insurance, whatever. That's very clear.
Yeah, it
and
says
succinct.
that.
Yeah, it's sponsored by at the beginning. Well, we're selling soap through commercials or whatever. That's the reference I call it. Just you're selling soap, and your ratings matter as to how much you get to sell the soap. So I said, fellas, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to do the first part of the scene, and before my son enters and says that, I'm going to excuse myself to the bathroom. And they said, okay, because that it wasn't up for discussion. That's what we were going to do. And I sat down, did the scene with two of my friends, Dave Keckner and Tim Meadows, are in the scene with me, and I do it, and I leave the bathroom. They shot it a couple times. I'm shot out. And as I walked away, I said to the producer director, have fun with your commercial. And I knew I was never coming back to that set again. In my mind, I'm out, because you can't try and fool people. This is the show. They like Little Caesars pizza. It's all got to be separate and real and honest. That's the way my mind works.
So you mean you were deciding to yourself, I'm not coming back?
I'm not coming back. There's no way. When I got outside, that HR person was there, and I had really been quiet all day, not sang any songs. And for me, it was because I didn't like the material, and there's that period of where they're doing a setup and making changes where I got to just sort of stay, and that's what I needed to do to rev me up to be in the scene. And so when I left, they said to me, Jeff, he said to me, Jeff, I knew you could do it. That was great. Well, I felt good about that. And I got a call from my manager, who I was about to call to say, I ain't going back. And then he called me and he goes, I just got a call from Sony. And I said, what did I do now? As a joke. And he said, they think you're a liability and they want to wrap your season out in a couple days. And so what happens is I said, oh, okay, fine. And great, 2 days. And I got like 7 more episodes in 2 days that I get paid for. Great. But I kept on thinking about, I don't want to come back to that set as Dead Man Walking. I said, okay, but I became manic because I didn't want to be, I came back to the set. If I came back to the set, I'd be Dead Man Walking, and I'm also paranoid. Who created this thing? So on every level, it was like, I don't want to go back. But then I'd say, fuck it. It's a lot of money. Go back and finish this up. And then I would be, no, I can't do it. My poor manager would get these calls. Yeah. And then I knew I remember I do the hyperbaric chamber. I don't know if you know what that is. And I was in the chamber, and I couldn't focus I watched Netflix in there, and I couldn't focus, and all I thought was, fine, I can't do it. That's it. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. And then by the time I was done and I left to walk to my car, I was weeping. And I thought, no, you got to kill yourself. You're done. It's over. And that's when I called Susie when I got in the car. I was crying. I was weeping to her. Because, the idea that I would go back and it'd be horrific, and also the idea that people didn't like me because I was, my worthiness was based on whether they liked me, and I wanted to be everything to everybody. That made me crazy, and so bloom, bloom, bloom. And I had just been diagnosed as bipolar. So
you were just before that?
No, yes, just.
Like a week before?
Maybe not even that, okay? The week before, the end of my time on the Goldbergs. That's why I said, well, maybe I'll listen and I'll just be, quiet. But it affected my performance. It affected everything. But, I remember they kept saying to me, save your comedy for the stage when you do stand-up on a comedy show. Boom. And I replied very sarcastically, well, clearly there's no comedy going on here. I will save it for the stage. I was that way. So that's what led me to this really dark point where I was suicidal, because it was all too much for me. And then I'm at the place which was at the Lindor Center in Cincinnati. I had a choice of going to a place in Beverly Hills or Cincinnati, and I thought, no, I need serious treatment. I'm going to Cincinnati in the middle of winter. You know, I'd heard a lot of stories about rehab places here in LA, and I'm sure some of them were excellent, but I didn't want to take a chance. So I went in the middle of winter. So I'm there. I'd been there for a night, 2 nights, and in the trades it shows up that I'm an asshole, that I'm lecherous, all these things. And at the time it was all, I actually went into shock. They had to cover me with blankets.
So you started shivering?
Yes, and my body went into shock. I could not believe it. And then as I spent time there, I was like really okay with, and that's the thing about when you go in these situations and there's things said about you. I think anyone, whether it's attempted assassination or an assassination, you always come out and you got to come out and say what your part was in it. And my part was, I was not a person you wanted to work with because light or dark, manic, not manic, like it all, and that's not a person you want to work with. But what really still hit me, and it doesn't hit me anymore, was that I was not a man of character with women. And look, I can't speak to that from the standpoint of, I don't know that, I don't think, I can only speak to what I know I did and how I feel strongly about, and that was me being an asshole or inconsistent with who I was.